Welcome, curious minds, to another deep dive from the Urban Herald team. We are your guides today, and our mission, well, as always, it's to sift through that vast ocean of information out there.
Yeah, to really pull out those crucial nuggets of knowledge.
Exactly, and make sure that by the end of our session, you're not just informed, but genuinely well-informed.
Yes.
Equipped with insights you might never have stumbled upon otherwise.
And today, we're not just dipping our toes in, we're plunging right into a story so monumental. I mean, it's so completely woven into the fabric of modern culture. It almost feels like it's just always been there.
It really does.
We are, of course, embarking on a deep dive into the world of the Beatles.
The Beatles, right.
And our exploration today, it's meticulously guided by the Urban Herald's own comprehensive guide, The Beatles, the complete guide to the world's greatest band legacy. Think of it as our archaeological toolkit for this.
Good way to put it.
Our mission for this session isn't just, recounting names and dates. We're here to act as cultural archaeologists, really digging beneath the surface to understand not just who the Beatles were, but precisely how they fundamentally transformed the world around them, culturally, musically, socially, even politically, you could argue.
Absolutely. And when you really stop and think about it, they totally transcend just being a musical group, don't they? They're a veritable cultural landmark, a sonic touchstone, a collective memory embedded across generations.
That's correctly said.
It's the kind of story that many of you listening might feel, inside and out. I mean, we all know the Beatles, right?
You think you do.
Yet, as our guide so brilliantly reminds us, there are always those 1,000 little details you never knew you were missing, those surprising insights that really, truly enrich the narrative. So, okay, let's start to unpack this, because here's where it gets really interesting, I think. How did 4 working-class lads from Liverpool, a city still grappling with the scars of post-war austerity, still rebuilding.
Yeah, a tough place back then.
How did they not just conquer the world, but actually manage to fundamentally reshape everything from, global fashion trends all the way to philosophical outlooks? It's kind of staggering.
And what's truly fascinating here, if we connect this to the bigger picture, like you said, is that their legacy isn't some dusty museum exhibit. It's not something you just view behind glass and then, move on from.
No, it's alive.
It's vibrant. It's alive. It's right there in the very DNA of, nearly every indie band you discover today, every pop star you see with a guitar.
Definitely.
And certainly every artist who dares to push the boundaries of the recording studio, using it as an instrument in its own right. Just look at the sheer number of contemporary artists across all sorts of genres who still cite the Beatles as a primary foundational influence.
It's constant.
Their innovative spirit isn't just an echo from the past. It's a living, breathing force still inspiring creation right now. It's sort of like looking at the foundational stones of, a soaring modern skyscraper and realizing those same principles laid down decades ago are not only still valid, but continuously underpin new architectural marvels.
That's a great analogy, and it sets the stage perfectly for our first major section, the genesis from Liverpool skiffle to Hamburg's crucible.
Right. The very beginning.
Because, like all truly great stories, theirs begins not with some grand overture, but with a bit of a rumble, a restless energy percolating in a specific time and place. Post-war Liverpool was, as our guide describes it, a hotbed of energy. The city was still picking itself up, rebuilding from the devastation, sure, but amidst that backdrop, there was this almost palpable hunger among young people for something entirely new.
Yeah, they wanted something theirs.
Exactly, something distinct, a sound that wasn't just a rehash or, a pale imitation of their parents' music. They were looking for an outlet, a voice, a beat of their own.
And it's into this fertile ground that John Lennon steps in. Born with this rebellious streak and a fierce, almost untamed love for American rock and roll, he channeled that energy.
He definitely had energy.
In 1956, he started a skiffle group, naming it the Quarrymen after his school, Quarry Bank High. Now, for those maybe unfamiliar with skiffle, imagine it as the raw, unpolished punk rock of its day.
Right. Super basic, right?
It's immediate, incredibly accessible, and it really democratized music. You didn't need much more than a cheap acoustic guitar, maybe an improvised washboard for percussion, an upright bass.
A T-chest bass sometimes.
Yeah, and a whole lot of attitude. It was the absolute perfect creative outlet for Lennon, who, by his own admission, was a bit of a neighborhood troublemaker. He was even expelled from school for his antics, apparently.
Wow.
He poured that restless, challenging spirit directly into this raw, blues-infused folk music, laying the groundwork for something far, far more substantial than anyone could have possibly imagined back then.
And then came what our source brilliantly terms the Big Bang of popular music.
Yes, the meeting.
On a fateful summer day, July 1957, at a garden fete at St. Peter's Church, another force of nature enters John's orbit. Paul McCartney. Picture the scene, right? Lennon's band is playing,
Yeah.
and here comes this younger boy who could not only play the guitar left-handed, which was genuinely a rare sight back then, given the limited availability of left-handed instruments, but he possessed this encyclopedic knowledge of rock and roll classics like Eddie Cochran's 20 Flight Rock. Knew all the words.
Impressive for a kid.
Totally. Their connection was immediate, explosive, really. It wasn't merely a meeting of two musicians. It was the genesis of what would become, well, the most legendary songwriting partnership in history. They almost instantly started bouncing ideas off each other, sharing obscure lyrics, teaching each other chords right there.
Exactly. Our guide highlights that this was a perfect, almost alchemical blend of opposites that, when combined, created this unstoppable creative force.
Yeah, Lennon and McCartney.
On one hand, you had Lennon's sharp, often cynical wit, his intellectual curiosity that brought a certain edginess and lyrical depth to their songs, often infused with social commentary even early on.
Mm-hmm.
On the other, you had McCartney's incredibly melodic, romantic sensibility. His innate knack for crafting those unforgettable hooks, those intricate harmonies, and the sing-along choruses.
He just had a gift for melody.
Together, they covered the entire spectrum of human emotion and musical possibility, creating a synergy that just transcended their individual talents. Soon after this pivotal meeting, a quiet but incredibly persistent guitar prodigy, George Harrison, joined the fold.
Little George.
Yeah, he was the youngest of the trio, and though Lennon initially had reservations about his age, he's too young, Lennon reportedly scoffed.
Uh-huh.
George's remarkable skill and unwavering dedication quickly made him indispensable. His guitar playing provided a crucial textural layer to their burgeoning sound. He just kept showing up, kept playing better and better.
And before they fully became the Beatles, before they were the global phenomenon we know, they went through a series of what our source wonderfully calls oral facelifts.
Good phrase.
They were the Quarrymen, then for a brief period, Johnny and the Moondogs. It's genuinely fascinating to trace these early iterations, these formative years where they were just trying to find their distinctive sound, experimenting with their identity, honing their stage presence in those small, smoky clubs.
And that search for identity led to a truly clever linguistic twist. It was their art school friend, Stuart Sutcliffe, who was playing bass with them at the time.
Right, the original bassist.
He suggested Beatles. Now, this was a clear and affectionate homage to Buddy Holly and the Crickets, reflecting their deep love for the burgeoning American rock and roll scene that was sweeping the globe.
Big fans.
That name then brilliantly evolved into the Beatles by 1960. The pun on beat music, the vibrant, rhythmic, energetic music sweeping through youth culture was absolutely brilliant. It perfectly captured the essence of their sound and the undeniable energy they brought to every performance.
Such a great name.
And with Pete Best on drums, initially the most conventionally attractive member, ironically.
Yeah, the girls like Pete.
That initial lineup was solidified, and they were truly ready for their first major grueling adventure abroad.
And for any true fan, or really anyone with even a passing interest in this incredible story, Liverpool isn't just another city, it's genuinely a pilgrimage site. You can still feel their almost tangible presence on every street corner, can't you?
Oh, absolutely. Places that were once just ordinary terraced houses or nondescript clubs are now hallowed ground for music lovers. They stand as testament to the deep roots they put down there before they became these global superstars.
It's amazing to see.
It's remarkably true. Take the Cavern Club, for instance. It's not just a venue. It's practically where their magic was first discovered, where that initial spark truly caught fire.
The birthplace, almost.
While the original club was tragically demolished, a faithful replica stands nearby on Matthew Street, and it offers a truly surreal experience. You can descend into a recreation of the very room where Brian Epstein, their future visionary manager, first saw them play in 1961.
Imagine being there then.
It's almost impossible not to conjure up the image of the raw, unadulterated energy of their early performances in that cramped, sweaty, brick-lined basement. The sheer volume bouncing off those low ceilings, and the nascent charisma that must have just been radiating off them, compelling and undeniable.
Must have been intense.
It really gives you a visceral sense of their gritty, authentic beginnings.
And beyond the cavern's evocative atmosphere, the Beatles Story Museum is an absolutely award-winning exhibition. It meticulously takes you on a chronological journey through the band's entire history, from the very early days right through their solo careers.
It's really well done.
It's a fantastic, immersive way to step into their timeline and see original artifacts, instruments, handwritten lyrics, stage costumes that truly bring their story to vivid life.
But for an even more intimate, almost sacred glimpse into their formative years, no trip to Liverpool is complete without visiting the childhood homes of John Lennon and Paul McCartney.
Oh yeah, Mendips and Forthland Road.
Exactly. These modest houses, John's Mendips and Paul's Forthland Road, are now meticulously preserved by the National Trust. Walking through those doors, you truly feel like you're stepping back in time.
It's quite moving.
These aren't just buildings. They are the very homes where they wrote some of their earliest, most iconic songs, where that spark of genius was first ignited over cups of tea, late-night conversations, and shared musical dreams in the front parlors. It's a powerful and humbling reminder of their surprisingly humble beginnings.
And for those of you looking for a really comprehensive, seamless experience that stitches all these iconic locations together, tours like the Magical Mystery Tour Bus offer a guided journey through all these sites.
Those are fun.
They provide such rich context, fascinating, often humorous stories, and a sense of shared camaraderie that truly brings the city's profound Beatles history to life. It's the perfect way to connect the dots in their early narrative and experience it firsthand.
Now, if you truly want to understand the raw, untamed power, the sheer grit and resilience that characterized those early Beatles records, you have to look at their grueling, transformative time in Hamburg, Germany.
Right, the Crucible.
From 1960 to 1962, the band essentially lived and breathed music in the notoriously seedy yet incredibly vibrant clubs of the Ripperbahn district. This wasn't a glamorous European tour, not by any stretch.
No way.
It was a brutal, grueling musical apprenticeship.
Yeah.
A veritable trial by fire. They were often forced to play for 8 hours a night, 7 days a week.
8 hours?
Sometimes for audiences primarily comprised of sex workers and their clients, in conditions that were, well, let's just say less than ideal. Imagine sweltering heat, poor ventilation, cheap beer, constant cigarette smoke.
And our source highlights an almost mythical detail of their early days there. They often slept in the back of the Bambino, a tiny cinema, behind the screen. No heating.
Yeah, roughing it doesn't even cover it.
That truly underscores the grittiness, the sheer dedication, and almost desperate conditions they endured just to play their music, to survive, and to hone their craft in that demanding environment. It's a testament to their single-minded pursuit.
It absolutely is. But it was here, in this intense musical pressure cooker, that the Beatles underwent a profound transformation. They arrived as a decent skiffle rock band.
Pretty good, but...
And they left as an unstoppable, tight, dynamic rock and roll machine. They were forced to learn a massive repertoire of songs on the fly, everything from Chuck Berry to Little Richard, obscure blues numbers, rockabilly classics, just to fill those incredibly long sets and keep the crowds engaged.
Had to keep playing.
This constant, relentless performing, night after night, honed their individual skills to a razor's edge and, perhaps more importantly, forged an unbreakable bond between them that would carry them through the ensuing chaos of global fame.
They became a real unit.
As George Harrison famously said, and our guide quotes him directly, Hamburg was really like our apprenticeship, learning how to play in front of people. By their last performances in Hamburg at the Star Club, Ringo Starr had replaced Pete Best on drums, solidifying the classic lineup.
Finally, Ringo.
And they had already tasted their first success back home in the UK with Love Me Do. The raw, uninhibited energy and electrifying stage presence of their Hamburg live performances were a far cry from the polished, arena-filling shows of their later years. Understanding this gritty foundation is utterly essential to grasping their full development.
And that rigorous apprenticeship, forged in the fires of Hamburg, leads us perfectly into our next section, the masterminds behind the mania.
The team.
Because every truly great band, every enduring artistic phenomenon needs not just talent, but a great team behind them, right? Nurturing that talent, shaping its presentation, navigating the industry.
Absolutely crucial.
And the Beatles, as our guide makes clear, truly had two of the very best. Without these pivotal figures, it's genuinely hard to imagine their meteoric trajectory being anywhere near the same.
The first and arguably most crucial of these architects of success was Brian Epstein. He was a record store manager running MSS, his family's music shop.
Not a typical background for a band manager.
No, what's remarkable is that he had absolutely no prior experience in artist management, None. Yet when he saw the Beatles perform at the Cavern Club in 1961, he was immediately, utterly captivated.
Just clicked for him.
Not just by their raw musical talent, but by their undeniable charisma, their infectious humor, and the palpable energy they generated in that cramped basement. He reportedly saw them as having star
I
quality.
saw it.
He took them on, and his genius was truly in knowing how to package their raw, untamed talent for a much wider, more mainstream audience. Our guide specifically mentions his now legendary move, trading their rough and ready leather jackets, jeans, and greasy hair for matching sharp Italian suits and insisting on their now iconic synchronized bow after each performance.
It seems small, but it was huge.
This wasn't just a stylistic change. It was a strategic rebranding. It softened their image just enough to make them palatable to a broader demographic, parents, grandparents, TV audiences, without ever losing their rebellious edge or inherent cool. He meticulously groomed them, advising them on press interactions, TV appearances.
And it wasn't just about the look, it was his unwavering, almost prophetic belief in them. Our guide shares that powerful, truly audacious anecdote of Epstein making what seemed at the time like an utterly outrageous claim.
Bigger than Elvis.
Exactly, that they would be bigger than Elvis.
Yeah.
This was at a time when Elvis Presley was, without question, the undisputed king of rock and roll, a global icon.
Seemed crazy.
Yet, Epstein saw something so profound in these four lads, that blend of raw talent, charm, sheer ambition, that compelled him to make such an audacious prediction. And as history unequivocally shows, he wasn't merely dreaming, he was seeing the future.
Incredible foresight.
His faith, his vision, his tireless work ethic were truly foundational to their ascent. He hustled tirelessly, endured countless rejections from record labels until he finally secured them that contract with EMI's Parlophone label.
Then we come to the second absolutely key player, Sir George Henry Martin, often affectionately and quite accurately called the fifth Beatle for his truly pivotal role as their producer.
The studio genius.
Martin was a fascinating character. Classically trained musician, skilled oboist, which might seem an odd fit for a raucous rock and roll band, right?
Yeah, a bit unusual.
He initially specialized in producing comedy records at EMI's Parlophone label, working with acts like Peter Sellers. But despite his background, he possessed an incredibly open mind and an adventurous spirit. He saw something unique in the Beatles' personalities, their collective chemistry, their raw energy, even if he wasn't entirely sold on their early songwriting or their initial demos.
He heard something.
He famously said their initial audition wasn't great music-wise, but their personalities were fantastic. His willingness to take a chance on them, despite their rough edges, was crucial.
And it was Martin, with his keen ear and classical training, who helped them truly refine their sound, transforming Please Please Me.
Big moment.
He took what was originally conceived by John Lennon as a slower, almost bluesy Roy Orbison-esque ballad,
Yeah, quite different.
and through his production genius and collaborative spirit, transformed it into the energetic, double-tracked, harmony-rich, catchy hit that became their first major success. He suggested speeding it up, adding that harmonica riff, focusing on those urgent harmonies.
And it worked. Big time.
This was a critical moment that not only gave them their first major hit, but also demonstrated the immense power of their burgeoning collaboration.
Absolutely. Martin's willingness to experiment, to push the boundaries of what was possible within the studio, was unparalleled for his time. He possessed this extraordinary ability to translate the band's wild, sometimes abstract, creative ideas.
Which they had plenty of.
Oh, yeah. Ideas which often came to him as vague concepts or a sound in their heads, like, I want to sound like 100 monks chanting, or I want my voice to sound like it's floating over a mountain.
How do you even produce that?
Right. He could translate that into tangible, meticulously recorded sound. He'd use his classical knowledge to arrange complex string sections for songs like Yesterday or Eleanor Rigby. And his experimental side led him to incorporate novel instruments and effects. This made him an invaluable collaborator, a sonic architect whose influence on the Beatles' music evolution simply cannot be overstated.
He really was the fifth Beatle in many ways.
He was, as our guide so aptly puts it, a master craftsman, and the Beatles, with their boundless creativity, were his ultimate canvas. He sculpted sounds that had quite literally never been heard before in popular music.
And with these masterminds behind them, Epstein managing the image and career, Martin refining the sound and pushing artistic boundaries, the Beatles were poised to truly ascend to global phenomenon status.
Ready for takeoff.
This brings us to Section 3, the ascent to global phenomenon, and specifically, the rise of Beatlemania, the world catches fire. It's difficult for us now to imagine a time when the Beatles weren't a household name, but their journey to that global dominance really started with a single, unassuming, harmonica-led track.
That track, as you say, was Love Me Do, released in October 1962. It was their first original composition to be professionally recorded and released, a clear declaration of their own songwriting prowess.
A big step.
Our guide highlights it as a pivotal moment, noting how for Ringo Starr, who had only just joined, seeing their name on a vinyl record was more significant than anything else. It showed them this was real. They were truly a recording act with a tangible product.
Must have felt amazing.
The song reached a respectable number 17 in the UK charts, which, okay, not number 1, but it was a promising start. It subtly hinted at the tidal wave of success that was just around the corner, beginning to ripple across the British Isles.
But the real seismic shift, the singular moment that truly catapulted them onto the global stage and into the American consciousness, happened on that cold night in February 1964.
Ed Sullivan.
We're talking, of course, about the Beatles' electrifying appearance on The Ed Sullivan Show. This wasn't just another TV performance. For America, it was an absolute cultural flashpoint, a national event of unprecedented scale.
And our guide really puts this into historical context beautifully. America at that moment was a nation still grappling with the profound grief and uncertainty following President Kennedy's assassination just a few months prior.
Such a dark time.
There was a palpable emotional void, a sense of national malaise. The Beatles' joyous, optimistic, undeniably energetic music, their vibrant personalities, offered a much-needed emotional lifesaver. It was a balm, a burst of exuberant, infectious hope in a time of national mourning. They arrived at precisely the right moment for a country desperately needing a lift.
Perfect timing. And the numbers that night are just staggering, almost incomprehensible even by today's standards. A staggering 73 million Americans.
73 million.
That's roughly 40% of the entire U.S. population at the time tuned in that night. In that single electrifying hour, Beatlemania wasn't just sparked, it was truly born, fully formed. The impact was immediate and utterly overwhelming.
Yeah, instant phenomenon.
From that moment, they were no longer just a British phenomenon. They belonged to the world.
It truly was an unprecedented cultural phenomenon. Our guide paints the picture vividly, the captivating side of the band themselves, those revolutionary mop-top haircuts, the sharp suits, that infectious, almost playful energy.
But screaming.
Oh, the overwhelming sound of the screaming girls in the studio audience, a sound that almost completely drowned out the music itself. And their charming, witty banter with a straight-laced Ed Sullivan, it all combined to create this collective cultural event that had simply never been seen before on that scale. Mass hysteria driven by genuine excitement and admiration.
Nothing like it before.
Nothing, absolutely nothing had prepared the world for such an explosive, widespread, and immediate reaction.
It was a visual and auditory declaration that something entirely new, something profoundly different was happening in popular culture. And it would change the face of popular music, celebrity, youth culture forever. This vanguard of the British invasion had officially landed on American shores.
Staking their claim.
Not merely visiting, but staking a permanent claim, and they certainly weren't leaving anytime soon. It was the definitive, unforgettable moment of their arrival.
And that profound, monumental arrival then blossomed into a period of unparalleled artistic output, a relentless creative sprint that defined an era. This brings us to Section 4, a sonic odyssey, the studio albums.
The music itself.
The Beatles' recording career is nothing short of a masterclass in artistic growth, relentless innovation, and daring experimentation. It's a journey that consistently pushed the boundaries of what pop music could achieve.
That's right. Each album they released wasn't just a simple collection of songs. It was an intricately crafted snapshot of their evolution, a distinct signpost on their extraordinary journey from relatively simple, energetic pop stars to complex, serious artists.
And with every single release, they fearlessly pushed the sonic, lyrical, and conceptual boundaries of popular music further and further. They seemed incapable of standing still creatively.
Always moving forward.
Let's start at the very beginning. Please Me, released in 1963. Their debut album was famously, almost unbelievably, recorded in a single, frenetic, 10-hour recording session. Basically, a live performance captured in the studio. Raw, unadulterated, capturing their electrifying stage energy. It made a bold statement. They were a self-contained rock band who not only performed with incredible verve, but crucially, wrote the majority of their own material. That was relatively rare for pop acts then.
Showed they could do it all.
Tracks like I Saw Her Standing There perfectly encapsulated that raw, infectious energy.
Then came with the Beatles later in '63, just 7 months after the debut. This album already showed a band evolving beyond that raw immediacy.
Going fast.
It was recorded over several months, allowing for a bit more studio polish. Significantly, it featured George Harrison's first recorded composition, Don't Bother Me, a clear sign of the emerging individual voices within the group.
George stepping up.
And its iconic, stark, half-lit cover art by Robert Freeman became an instantly recognizable template for album design for years to come. A powerful visual statement.
A Hard Day's Night, released in 1964, stands as a true landmark album because it was the first to feature entirely original songs written by Lennon and McCartney. No covers.
All originals. Big deal.
This coincided with their groundbreaking first film of the same name, which was a massive critical and commercial success, presenting them not just as musicians, but as witty, charming personalities.
The movie was huge, too.
The album and film together truly cemented their place as global superstars, showing their remarkable versatility and their ability to conquer multiple media platforms simultaneously. That opening chord of the title track, still debated by musicologists today.
Rubber Soul from 1965 is often cited by critics and fans alike as their first truly major artistic statement, a profound shift.
Definitely a change.
Our guide calls it a turning point, where fans began to appreciate the more progressive, introspective, and lyrically sophisticated nature of their music.
Yeah.
It was the album that truly signaled their profound shift from being merely a pop group to being serious, introspective artists with something deeper to say.
And you can hear that shift distinctly throughout the album. Perhaps the most striking example is the inclusion of a sitar on Norwegian Wood, This Bird Has Flown.
The sitar. Groundbreaking.
This wasn't just a novelty, it was a bold, genuinely experimental move that opened up entirely new sonic possibilities for Western pop music. The sitar, with its distinct buzzing drone and ethereal timbre, introduced exotic textures and proved that rock could daringly incorporate global sounds and instruments.
Pushing the envelope.
It literally brought Eastern philosophy and sound into the Western mainstream.
Building profoundly on that sense of experimentation, Revolver in 1966 was, as our guide accurately describes, a full-on revolution.
Yes. Revolver.
Wow. It's consistently and widely considered by critics to be one of the greatest albums ever made, if not the greatest. And it's where the band, with George Martin's masterful guidance, truly pushed the boundaries of what was possible in the recording studio.
Indeed. This is the album where they truly embraced the studio as an instrument in itself, a laboratory for sound. They were pioneering incredibly innovative techniques, like using tape loops.
Those loops were crazy.
Where they physically cut and re-spliced magnetic tape to create repeating, rhythmic, often psychedelic sound patterns. Backward recordings, where instruments or vocals were played in reverse for a disorienting effect. And intricate, often unconventional string arrangements, far removed from standard orchestral fare.
Stuff no one else was doing.
Tracks like Tomorrow Never Knows, with John Lennon's vocals processed through a Leslie speaker normally used for Hammond organs and those swirling, otherworldly tape loops, or Eleanor Rigby with its stark, unsettling double-string quartet arrangement. They showcase this fearless experimentation. They weren't just recording songs, they were sculpting soundscapes.
And then the true pinnacle of their creative ambition, Street Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band from 1967.
Street Pepper. Iconic.
This wasn't just an album, it was a cultural event, a profound watershed moment in pop music history, and its immersive influence is still felt deeply across countless genres and artistic disciplines today.
It was an absolute complete artistic package, a cohesive statement. The ambitious concept of the band adopting fictional alter egos, the Lonely Hearts Club Band, allowed them to break free from the constraints of their Beatle identity and experiment with a broader palette of musical styles and personas.
Freedom to create anything.
The truly innovative production blended diverse sounds and genres seamlessly, creating a continuous, immersive listening experience, often with no breaks between tracks, like that transition from Escape Peppers to With a Little Help from My Friends.
Seamless flow.
And the elaborate artwork, a veritable collage of cultural figures and symbols, added another layer of depth and intrigue. This record wasn't just critically acclaimed, it won the very first Grammy for Album of the Year ever given to a rock album, cementing rock music's place as a serious art form.
And beyond the music itself, Sister Pepper's influence on the broader counterculture movement of the 1960s was immense. It wasn't just background music, it was a soundtrack, a visual and auditory manifesto.
Absolutely.
It profoundly shaped everything, from fashion trends inspiring the vibrant psychedelic clothing and colors of the era, to various forms of art, and even sparked complex philosophical and artistic discussions among its listeners about creativity, identity, societal norms. It truly transcended being just music. It was a cultural touchstone.
Following that, in 1968 came the Beatles, more commonly and affectionately known as the White Album.
The White Album, so different.
This was a sprawling, eclectic, double album masterpiece. Our guide notes that it showcased both the incredible breadth of their boundless creativity and, perhaps more poignantly, the increasingly growing tensions and diverging interests within the band.
You could hear the cracks forming.
With its unprecedented 30 tracks recorded over a tumultuous period, it served as a showcase of each member's increasingly individual voice and burgeoning solo ambitions, reflecting their fragmented state. You could hear everything from Paul's jaunty obla-di-obla-da to the heavy rock aggression of Helter Skelter,
Total opposite ends of the spectrum.
and the avant-garde, almost jarring soundscapes of Revolution 9. It was a deliberate move away from the cohesive, unified concept of Sgt. Pepper, reflecting their divergent paths.
Then, in 1969, we have Abbey Road, which our guide beautifully refers to as their beautiful, if unintentional, farewell.
Such a gorgeous album.
While they didn't know it would be their last recording together, it featured some of their finest, most tightly crafted songs, and that stunning, meticulously constructed medley on side 2, a suite of interconnected song fragments that demonstrated their unparalleled genius for blending individual compositions into a cohesive, soaring work of art.
The medley is just breathtaking. And its iconic cover, featuring them walking single file across that zebra crossing just outside Abbey Road Studios.
Everyone knows that cover.
It's perhaps one of the most recognizable, celebrated, and endlessly replicated images in music history. It's become a global landmark in its own right, speaking volumes about the enduring power of that final incredible collective recording. A simple yet profound visual testament to their unity, even as cracks were forming.
Finally, we arrive at Let It Be, released in 1970 after the band's official breakup.
The posthumous release, really.
This album serves as a poignant, somewhat bittersweet conclusion to their extraordinary story, meticulously documenting their often strained final recording sessions. Despite the tensions, it still contains timeless gems like the powerful, uplifting title track, Let It Be,
An anthem.
and the timeless elegiac, The Long and Winding Road. It was an emotional epilogue to an extraordinary, unparalleled run.
This brings us to Section 5, the 4 pillars and their unraveling. While they function for a remarkable period as a singular, unified, unstoppable creative force, the Beatles were also 4 distinct, incredibly powerful personalities,
4 individuals.
each bringing something profoundly unique and vital to the collective mix. Our guide describes them perfectly as a creative ecosystem, a dynamic interplay of individual talents.
Absolutely. The interactions between them, both harmonious and crucially discordant, are precisely what made their music so rich, so complex, and so enduringly human. You can almost feel those intricate dynamics, those subtle tensions and soaring harmonies resonating in every track they recorded.
Their individual strengths and quirks truly amplified the whole. Let's delve into John Lennon first, the revolutionary.
John, the witty one.
John was truly the intellectual, the sharp-witted rebel, and often the most outspoken and provocative of the group. His songwriting was this incredible, often contradictory mix of deep, confessional introspection, like in Help,
So raw.
and expansive, mind-bending psychedelic exploration, famously exemplified by the dreamy, evocative Strawberry Fields Forever. It was always infused with a sharp, often satirical edge, reflecting his keen, sometimes cynical observation of the world and his innate skepticism towards authority, always pushing, always questioning.
And he notoriously challenged authority, not just through his music, but with his famous, often controversial quips and pronouncements.
Well, yeah.
Our guide reminds us of his cheeky comment to the Royal Variety Performance audience in 1963, telling the cheap seats to clap and the rest to just rattle their jewelry. A playful jab at the establishment.
Classic Lennon.
And of course, the more serious, more popular than Jesus comment in 1966, which ignited a significant global controversy, particularly in the US, showcasing his willingness to provoke, to push boundaries, express his unfiltered thoughts.
And pull back.
His increasingly intense relationship with Yoko Ono also brought both profound personal fulfillment and undeniably significant creative and interpersonal tension within the band dynamics, as her presence in the studio often altered the established creative chemistry.
Then there's Paul McCartney, often seen as the melodic heart of the band, the musical diplomat.
Paul, the tunesmith.
Paul was truly a master craftsman of song, capable of crafting both timeless, tender, universally beloved ballads like Yesterday, which remains one of the most covered songs ever,
Incredible song.
and incredibly complex experimental pieces such as Eleanor Rigby. His melodic genius was prodigious, and his range, from whimsical pop to poignant introspection, was truly incredible.
And his bass plan was genuinely revolutionary, fundamentally changing the role of the bass guitar in popular music.
Hugely influential bassist.
He evolved from simply laying down basic root notes, the traditional rhythmic foundation, to creating complex melodic lines that were as intricate and essential to the song's structure as any guitar riff or vocal part.
Like another melody line.
Listen to the serpentine bass line on Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds or the driving, inventive bass on Paperback Writer. He wasn't just providing rhythm, he was weaving counter melodies, adding a rich harmonic foundation that elevated their entire sound. And he was often the one who tried to keep the band together,
The diplomat, yeah.
acting as a unifying, pragmatic force, tirelessly navigating the growing tensions with his diplomatic nature and his relentless focus on the music.
Moving to George Harrison, affectionately known as the Quiet Beatle.
The spiritual one, maybe?
George's remarkable journey from being the youngest, most inexperienced member, often overshadowed in the early years by the prolific Lennon-McCartney partnership, to a brilliant, distinctive songwriter in his own right. It's a testament to his quiet determination, his relentless practice, and his unwavering perseverance. He steadily grew into his own as a truly formidable creative force.
He really blossomed.
And his deep, evolving interest in Indian music and philosophy, stemming from his studies with Ravi Shankar, profoundly brought entirely new dimensions to the band's sound and worldview.
Huge impact.
You can hear it explicitly in songs like Within You, Without You, where he integrated traditional Indian instrumentation like the sitar and tabla with profound philosophical lyrics, introducing Western audiences to new scales and spiritual concepts. And in later classics like Here Comes the Sun, you hear his unique, optimistic perspective and lyrical beauty, often finding solace and deeper meaning in nature and spirituality,
Beautiful songs.
which provided a distinct and crucial counterpoint to Lennon and McCartney's often more earthly concerns within the group. He truly broadened their sonic and philosophical palette.
Finally, Ringo Starr. Often underestimated, but truly the perfect fit.
Ringo. Can't forget Ringo.
Ringo's drumming style was unique, utterly inimitable, and absolutely irreplaceable. He wasn't about flashy, attention-grabbing solos or complex fills.
No, he played for the song.
Exactly. He provided the rock-solid, unflappable rhythmic foundation that allowed the others the freedom to explore more complex melodies and harmonies. His drumming was consistently tasteful, perfectly complementing the song, and his often copied distinctive fills like On a Day in the Life were instantly recognizable.
You know it's Ringo.
Despite being left-handed, he played on a right-handed drum kit, which contributed to his distinctive style. He was the anchor, the backbone.
And his genuine humility, his characteristic deadpan humor, and his unwavering affability made him the perfect personality to complete the group,
Held them together sometimes.
often easing tensions, providing much-needed comic relief, acting as a steadying presence amidst the often turbulent personalities of the other three. Our guide also notes his occasional lead vocals on beloved, often lighthearted songs like Yellow Submarine and With a Little Help from My Friends,
Everyone loves those.
which added a distinct warmth, charm, and relatable personality to their recordings, often providing a welcome break from the deeper, more complex material.
Sadly, all masterpieces, however grand or revolutionary, eventually unravel. The end of an era for the Beatles was not a single, sudden, dramatic event.
No, it was gradual.
As our guide accurately describes it, a slow-motion car crash of creative and personal tensions. By the late 1960s, each member was naturally growing in different artistic and personal directions, their individual ambitions diverging more and more profoundly.
Pulling in different directions.
There were multiple interlocking factors contributing to this unraveling. John's increasingly intense relationship with Yoko Ono, whose presence in the studio often caused friction, altered the band's established dynamic.
That's often cited.
There was Paul McCartney's persistent desire to maintain a rigorous touring schedule, which the others, exhausted by Beatlemania and increasingly interested in studio experimentation, were no longer keen on.
They'd had enough of touring.
George Harrison's increasing confidence as a songwriter, coupled with his frustration that his excellent material was often overlooked in favor of Lennon-McCartney compositions, became a significant point of contention.
Understandably. He was writing great stuff.
And then there were various complex, often acrimonious business disagreements, particularly involving their Apple Corps venture, which was plagued by financial mismanagement and internal squabbles. Further exacerbated by the controversial hiring of manager Alan Klein over McCartney's objections. It was a dense, complex web of factors pulling them apart.
A messy situation. A truly poignant and beautiful moment during this period of decline was their last public performance, the now famous Beatles rooftop concert on a cold January day in 1969.
The rooftop concert. Legendary.
Perched atop the Apple Corps building on Savile Row and filmed for the Let It Be project, it showed the Beatles, for one glorious last time, at their absolute best. Despite the underlying strain and tension evident behind the scenes, they were still capable of incredible, almost effortless magic together.
You can see it in the footage.
It was a final, glorious, spontaneous burst of their collective power, a moment of pure, unadulterated musical joy that offered a fleeting glimpse of the unity they once shared.
Despite that final burst of magic, the band officially broke up in 1970, with Paul McCartney's public announcement of his departure marking the definitive end of an era. It was a moment that sent shockwaves across the globe and left millions of fans heartbroken.
Yeah, a sad day. And our guide truly laments that the subsequent protracted legal battles over their business affairs, particularly involving Apple Corps, were a truly sad and bitter end to such a beautiful and productive creative partnership.
The lawsuits dragged on.
The collaborative peak was tragically over, and the often acrimonious legal quagmire began, overshadowing their extraordinary collective achievements for years.
But despite that tumultuous, almost heartbreaking end, the Beatles' influence is not merely a historical footnote. It's like a pebble dropped in a vast pond, and the ripples are still profoundly spreading, changing the very landscape of music and culture.
Still feeling it today?
This brings us to our final section, the enduring echoes and the enduring legacy of the Beatles, a world forever changed.
Their musical innovation alone is truly staggering and continues to be studied. They quite literally pioneered numerous recording techniques, fundamentally transforming the studio from a mere recording space into a creative instrument in its own right, moving far beyond simply documenting live performances.
Changed how records were made.
They profoundly demonstrated that rock music could be both commercially successful and artistically significant, elevating the genre to new, unprecedented heights of critical respectability. And their conceptual approach to album making, seeing a record as a cohesive artistic statement with overarching themes and meticulously crafted song sequencing, rather than just a disparate collection of singles, set a new, towering standard for artistic ambition that countless artists still aspire to today.
The album as art.
Precisely.
What's also truly amazing and often understated is their fearless and eclectic use of incredibly diverse musical styles. They seamlessly incorporated elements from classical orchestration, as we discussed with George Martin's arrangements,
Right. Yes.
to Indian music inspired by George Harrison's explorations, and even avant-garde sounds and music concrete. This radical openness didn't just expand their own sound, it flung open the doors for an entire generation of artists to experiment without fear.
A permission, almost.
Showing that popular music could truly be an unbounded melting pot of genres, influences, and sonic textures.
Beyond the music, their impact on global culture is undeniable and pervasive. Their fashion choices, from the mop tops and matching suits to the Deach Pepper psychedelic finery, immediately sparked trends worldwide.
Everyone wanted to look like them.
Their groundbreaking films, like A Hard Day's Night and Help, weren't just promotional vehicles. They were cinematic touchstones that blended humor, music, and surrealism. And their central, inescapable role in the counterculture movement of the 1960s, their advocacy for peace, love, experimental lifestyles, all of it helped shape our modern world in profound, lasting ways. They were, in essence, cultural arbiters, trendsetters, in a way few artists have ever been before or since.
And our guide points out that the very phenomenon of Beatles fan culture was, in itself, a template for modern celebrity and media-driven hype.
Beatlemania set the stage.
The sheer, unprecedented hysteria surrounding them, the explosion of merchandise, the constant insatiable media attention, the global tours that were more like triumphal marches, It's a template for superstardom that's still very much in use today. They quite literally define the very nature of modern celebrity and how mass media interacts with global idols.
Their success, commercially and critically, is simply unmatched in recorded music history. With over 500 million records sold worldwide, the Beatles remain, unequivocally, the best-selling band of all time.
Just staggering numbers.
This astonishing commercial triumph is matched, perhaps even surpassed, by their unparalleled critical acclaim, with 4 of their albums making it into the top 10 of Rolling Stone's perennial 500 greatest albums of all time. This incredible, almost unique combination of artistic brilliance and commercial juggernaut status has truly made them the gold standard for popular music achievement,
The benchmark.
the benchmark against which all others are measured.
And the Lennon-McCartney partnership, while often credited as a seamless joint effort, evolved significantly over time, becoming more complex and fascinating. In their very early days, as we touched on, they genuinely wrote together, sitting eyeball to eyeball, crafting lyrics and melodies side by side.
The early stuff, yeah.
But as time went on and their individual voices matured and diverged, their collaboration became more of a friendly, albeit at times intensely competitive, dynamic, with them largely writing songs separately, often even for different albums, but still crediting them jointly as a testament to their foundational bond.
More like rivals pushing each other later on.
Yeah, creative tension.
That underlying creative tension, the fascinating dynamic between Lennon's often rebellious, introspective, and politically charged perspective, and McCartney's melodic, optimistic, and romantically inclined sensibility, was ultimately what created their unique, undeniable magic. It wasn't always easy, but it consistently pushed both of them to greater creative heights, resulting in some of the most enduring, innovative, and universally beloved songs in popular music history.
Genius out of friction.
It was a synergy that was both beautifully complementary and, at times, intensely challenging, forging genius out of friction.
So, as we wrap up this deep dive, it's abundantly clear that the Beatles didn't simply write great songs. They created an entirely new paradigm for what popular music could be.
Absolutely changed the game.
From their humble, gritty beginnings in post-war Liverpool, through the grueling apprenticeship in Hamburg, to conquering the world and indelibly shaping everything from global fashion to profound philosophical discussions, their story is an enduring testament to the raw power of creativity, vision, and relentless innovation.
They truly didn't just write great songs. They designed a new blueprint for what popular music could achieve, creating an entire new universe of sound and cultural impact that continues to resonate. If we connect this to the bigger picture, to our lives today, what profound lessons can we draw? When 4 working-class lads from Liverpool, through sheer creative audacity, unwavering vision, and a dynamic, albeit sometimes tumultuous shared purpose, could conquer the world and leave such an incredibly profound, lasting legacy. How does their story, and particularly their enduring message of love, peace, and universal harmony in what feels like an increasingly chaotic world, how does that inspire us? To pursue our own creative endeavors, to embrace our own collaborations, and to find our unique voices, no matter how unlikely or humble our starting point might seem.
That's a truly powerful thought to leave you with, one we sincerely hope you'll mull over as you go about your day. We invite you to continue your own deep dive by revisiting the Beatles' incredible genre-defying music, maybe exploring more about their fascinating history through our comprehensive guide.
Or just listen again with fresh ears.
Or simply pondering the immense, enduring power of a shared vision and unwavering creativity. Thank you for joining the Urban Herald team for this deep dive into the world's greatest band legacy. Be sure to tune in for our future explorations, where we'll continue to unpack the knowledge that truly matters.